Women Taking the Lead, episode 230.
Don't listen to those internal voices. Don't doubt yourself. There is nothing wrong with you wanting to do something that your immediate sphere of family and friends think is beyond your reach.
Hello, my name is Jody Flynn and welcome to Women Taking the Lead, where we are all about creating blasts of inspiration to help you overcome self-doubt so you can lead with confidence, integrity, and a sense of humor. Have you grabbed your copy of my best-selling book, Accomplished: How to Go from Dreaming to Doing? Head over to womentakingthelead.com/accomplished to access the secrets to achievement and success. Now, your future awaits, so let's get started. Okay, ladies, let's admit it. We care about the ingredients in the food we eat and the beauty products we use. Why shouldn't the same be true of our feminine care products, especially the ones we put inside our bodies? Lola is a female-founded company offering a line of organic cotton tampons, pads, and liners. They started their company with a simple and seemingly obvious idea. Women shouldn't have to compromise when it comes to their feminine care products. Lola products are 100% natural and 100% easy to feel good about. Unlike major brands, Lola offers complete transparency about the ingredients found in their products. No BS, no mystery fibers, no more doubts about what's going into your body. Lola products are 100% organic cotton with no added chemicals, fragrances, synthetics, or dyes. Plus, Lola products come in a simple, customizable subscription, so you'll never need to make another frantic trip to the drugstore. Lola will deliver exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. I've already received a shipment and I love it. I've said on here before, I'm a huge fan of the subscription model and I love the Lola brand. The tampons were in a cute and modern little box and the inside cover said, "This too shall pass, and until it does, we're here for you." I laughed out loud when I opened the box. To try out Lola and get 60% off your first order, visit mylola.com, that's MYLOLA.com, and enter promo code LEAD when you subscribe. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Carol Mitchell, who is the author of Breaking Through Bitch: How Women Can Shatter Stereotypes and Lead Fearlessly. She co-founded Talent Strategy Partners, working with numerous companies to identify and develop leaders to build the right workplace culture. Carol helps organizations advance women using her proprietary assessment and development programs. She is a frequent speaker and writer on women's leadership and a contributing editor for the Huffington Post. Carol, it is an honor to have you here talking about women and leadership and stereotypes. How fun. But if you could, tell us a little bit more about yourself first and your own humble beginnings.
Okay, absolutely. I am from the Northeast. I grew up in New Jersey, and my influences were Irish and Catholic, and so in that environment, the role of women, and this probably also dates me, the role of women was not to achieve and excel, and in fact, everything was downplayed, pretty much. So that really got me. Even though I was working very hard in school and achieving, I still thought that I could do better, or somehow it wasn't enough. So I really did lack confidence, I think, from the very beginning, I had self-doubt, if you will. But anyway, I went on. I went on to graduate from a state college, and I was a research scientist, and so I was working as a research scientist, and I was doing some pretty significant stuff. And at one point, I was working. This is about 5 years into my my career as a scientist, and I was working on a project that was really cool. I won't go into the details, but it was it was with another department in the company than where I was, and I was presenting my research results, and I was the only woman in the room. And the person whose lab I was in, that I worked with, was also in the audience. And when it came time for questions, the questions, although the person would look at me, they would then look at the guy from my lab, and direct the question toward him instead of me. And luckily, that man was aware of the dynamics and would always steer the questions back to me. But my feeling at that point in time was, I thought it was me. I thought that, gee, I'm not exuding enough command and confidence in my material, and that's why people think they have to ask the guy the question instead of me. And it really wasn't until graduate school and studying psychology that I realized that there was definite gender issues going on, that I had blamed myself for. So anyway, that's my humble beginnings, if you will.
Yeah. And Kara, I have to, we have similar backgrounds, in terms of the communities that we grew up in. And I also experienced some similar things that, there were certain things that the boys could do, and there were things that girls could not. It just wasn't an option at the time. And I remember growing up, I don't remember specifically anyone saying you can only be these things for your career, but oftentimes when career was talked about, it was, you would hear secretary or teacher or nurse, and not much more than that. And there was always the ... and you can be anything you want to be. But that wasn't true, because if you said, I want to be a priest, they were like, no, you can't be that. You can be anything you want to be, except for, all these other things that only men can do. Yeah.
And the other thing was just any time I really expressed ambition around something that would push the envelope outside that role, I would hear things like, seriously, who do you think you are? And, that kind of settles in. And then I think about a relationship I had very, very early on. The first time I got married pretty much right out of college. But just the concept of, I was doing research in biotechnology, and it was serious research. And at the time that we were, after we got married and we moved, I was looking for a job, and I was looking for, I was going to the big medical centers and the biotechs and whatnot. And my husband at the time was like, well, why don't you waitress at XYZ institution, or why don't you teach? So even someone my own age was kind of pushing back, like why, like it was ridiculous to be reaching for a research position, even though I was leaving one, right? But it's just that, that constant push of, you're being too ambitious.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you as well, Carol, because it's interesting, like this, you shared how you grew up and, kind of the mindset at that time. And then you were like, and I was, in research and science. And I was like, well, that was kind of breaking the mold in those days. How did you get into biotechnology?
Well, I was a pre-med, student in college, and my senior year, I got a this 5-credit research course, and and that was probably that was a huge milestone, actually. I had so I went to a big university, so you go to lectures in an auditorium where nobody knows your name, right? And I remember in my junior year, a professor, a cell biologist, had wanted to meet with me, had set up a meeting for me with him in his office. And he said, I just want to let you know that your advisor is very frustrated with you because you're not attending all the classes, yet you're managing to pull down B's in those classes, and it really bothers him. And what's your problem? Why aren't you going to class? And I was just like, whoa. And I mean, I was amazed. He goes, you're smart. Because I was in one of his classes, he said, what are you doing? And he said, look, when next year, I think you should really look into this, the senior level lab course. And told me who to go and talk to. And my reaction was, yeah, but I'm not getting the grades. And he's like, stop, stop. Go talk to this guy. So I did, and I got into this course. It was because of that course and working in the lab that he gave me a recommendation when I graduated from college to a professor at the University of Pennsylvania who was involved in a startup biotech in collaboration with GE.
Wow.
And right. So that's how it happened. It was that professor that took an interest and noticed that, I had promise, but I wasn't stepping up to the plate, and really pushed me. And then that connection led to the connection to Penn and the biotech. So, and then that experience ultimately led me to Boston and a company called Genzyme, where that was awesome. It was a startup, and I was one of the first dozen employees there. It's since become a very large organization, but it's those connections, right? And I wasn't working and looking for connections that would get me to the next place. It was just fortuitous.
Right. God bless teachers, right? The ones who step in and make a difference.
I know, Jody. I mean, I have to say that every once in a while it comes back up. And I think, I wonder if I could find this guy's email and just tell him that he changed my life, right? That he made such a positive impact. You start, once you get over 50, I think you start, well, maybe even over 40, you start thinking about these people who really helped you and made you successful, and you want to go back and thank them.
Mm-hmm. I actually did recently, in the last year or so, had an opportunity to have a Skype call with a teacher from high school who made a difference in my life. I want to have her on this podcast. It hasn't worked out yet, but had an opportunity to say, I made it, I quote unquote made it, right? Like, I'm doing well. Thank you so much. It was because, you had an influence on me at a very pivotal point in my life. And yeah, it's amazing. All right, Carol, we could go on and on. Yeah, we have work to do here. So at this point, before we get into the rest of the questions, we're definitely going to talk about like where you are now and all the exciting things that you're doing. But I'd like to start us off with the playing small moment, right? Those moments when we just don't recognize our value. We may hold ourselves back. But luckily, there's usually a happy ending, or at least at this point, there's another side. We've gotten to the other side of that moment. So if you would, share with us your playing small story and the lessons you've learned.
Sure. So I, as I was trajecting there through my early career, I eventually moved from Genzyme to DuPont and their pharmaceutical R&D division, and had a lot of great colleagues who they were encouraging me to go back to school. And at that point, my view of school wasn't very positive. I was just, I'm like, no way, Jose, am I going back to, what I remembered my experience of college. And so that was my first line of excuse, right? And then my next line of excuse was I was embarrassed because my grade point average wasn't very high. So I didn't think I would be able to get in. So I didn't want to apply and be rejected.
Mm.
And then I would look into it, and it was like, well, but I would have to stop working, and I can't afford to do that. And I just kept making excuses for why I couldn't even apply. And so there was someone at that point who had said, they outline these rules. He said, but people don't necessarily follow the rules. This thing about having to go full time, that can be negotiated. This thing about, and he just pointed out to me that I needed to just see what I could get, right? And so I apply and I get accepted. I get accepted into a graduate program for counseling, psychology, and psychological services. And I thought, oh, well, I guess they didn't have a lot of applicants this year. In other words, they accepted me because they were accepting everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I really believed that, and I actually remember saying that. And then I thought, well, I have tuition reimbursement from DuPont, so they're eager to get somebody who's going to pay full freight for this master's program. And it was just an aha moment for me when I realized, and quite frankly, it was after I was already engaged in the program and doing really well, and graduated at the top of my class, that I finally thought, I could have been back in the lab, not doing anything about advancing my career, very easily. And here I am, and I've succeeded. So I think I realized at that point that I was holding myself back. And yes, a lot of it is those internalized messages. Who do you think you are? Working in science, or, going to an Ivy League school, just all those messages that you kind of ingest, and it's hard to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The first step is to be aware of it. And it sounds like you weren't even aware of it till you were in your program, like you said, in your program, doing well. I was just talking about this at a presentation I was doing last week, where I was talking about how if something happens that goes against our belief system, we have two choices. We either have to adjust our belief system, or we will make excuses for why what is happening is an anomaly. Mm-hmm. And we can do that for a while. Like you just gave an example of how, and this happened, and so I made this excuse, and then I made this up, and then I told myself this. Like you were convincing yourself that it was a fluke, that you were here by accident, or the circumstances had it so that they were taking anybody that year. And can you imagine if you had trained yourself at that point to change your belief, to be like, oh, I really am pretty amazing. Like they were right. I am capable of this program, but you had to be in the program and prove it to yourself before you would believe it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also realized that even though I had that, I'll call it an aha moment, I continue to fall into the trap and then and have these aha moments. So it's, so I didn't necessarily break the cycle right at that point in time.
Well, Carol, what I say too, because I'm a coach, and Oftentimes, the things I'm coaching and helping other people overcome, I'm also susceptible to myself. But what the difference is, I've trained myself to recognize it as it's happening and stop it sooner, right? And you've probably noticed that in yourself too. Yes, you trip over the same things, but you catch it a lot quicker so that you can change, your mindset about what's happening sooner. You don't have to be well into a program before you decide like, oh, okay, I can start to believe that I belong here. You probably catch the thought and change the mindset almost immediately. Awesome. Now, you brought up wake up call, and I want another one because I love wake up call stories. So, Carol, if you would share with us another time in your life when you had another wake up call, and would love to hear the steps that led up to that moment, and then the actions you took that led to your success.
Okay. The aha moment actually involves me writing my book. And so I will go back to what leads up to that aha moment. And so I finished my master's degree. I went on and was in a PhD program for organizational psychology. You'll notice that I did switch careers. By going back to graduate school, I left the lab and science. I loved it, but it wasn't lucrative. And also, I didn't want to go back to graduate school for molecular biology and have to do a postdoc and have to write grants. It didn't give me that, what I really wanted from my career. And so I went for a career in organizational psychology. So anyway, my dissertation was about, and by the way, I was working full time while I was going through my graduate program, which was a great thing because it was like I had my own lab, if you will, of people, and just fodder for papers. It was great. But anyway, I did my dissertation looking at the differences between men and women in leadership. And I knew that what it took to be a successful leader as a woman was different. You couldn't just act like a man. I knew that they were different. So I decided that was what my project, my dissertation was going to be on, was looking at those behavioral differences. And so as a result, I came up with a women's leadership model. So it was a profile of success, if you will, or a roadmap of behaviors that women demonstrate. And the women that I did the behavioral study on had these things in common, and they were different from men. So my dissertation, when I wrote it up, I remember sitting with my committee, and they said, "Oh, you're going to make us all famous," because I had written this up, and it was, I guess it was cutting edge at the time. It was 2000. And I didn't think it necessarily was because I knew what was out there in the academic literature. So anyway, I graduate and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to make this dissertation a popular book. Okay. So in 2001, I was busy. In 2003, I thought about it again, but a literary agent said, this kind of stuff doesn't sell. There's nothing new here. So then I just kind of packed it away and focused on my business and the work we were doing in leadership development. But Sheryl Sandberg wrote a book called Lean In, which probably many people here know about. And when she came out with that book and I saw the reaction, I thought, wow. I mean, she really opened the door to the conversation about women's leadership and how women face a different set of obstacles and that they have to navigate. And the way she came at it was how she navigated it. And she was encouraging people. And I thought, yeah, but they're not you. And oh, by the way, I have not only my dissertation research, but in all my years as a leadership consultant, I've been doing behavioral interviews with men and women. So I have this vast base of knowledge about successful women in leadership. And I thought, I've, I really want to write this book. I really do have something to say, and I think it's different, and it's a contribution. Um, and I was really encouraged by my business partner and also some of her colleagues who she had told, about my reaction to the Sheryl Sandberg book. And, I was beating myself up because I hadn't written a book yet. And so it was really, I wish I could say, I came to the realization that I really needed to do this and I had something different to say. I needed my friends and colleagues to remind me of that. So, so I guess the second aha moment was realizing that I had been telling myself, yeah, everybody knows about this. You know, there are professors that have written about this, and anybody who is working knows about this. So I just didn't appreciate that people may have been aware of it, but the way I talk about it would necessarily be different, and I have something to say that could add to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. It's that same old story of we think what we know and what we've mastered is common sense. And the reality is it's not. Like you said, you'd had all that research, graduate level research, and all that experience working with leaders. And most of the people don't have that. And I think, like you said, people who've had the experiences, like you talk about in your book, they're aware of it, but they're probably not processing it or looking at it the same way you're looking at it. Like sometimes we need somebody else to point out the elephant in the room and say, hey, look, there's an elephant in the room. And we're like, oh, we thought that was wallpaper. Oh, we thought that was just the way things were. Oh, we thought that's the way things had to be, until somebody comes along and says, no. Like it doesn't, it's not wallpaper. It's not, you don't have to assume this. And a lot of times too, not everyone who read, I'll give this as an example. I really enjoyed Lean In. I absolutely did. But not everyone I talked to appreciated the way it was presented, or the stories that were talked about. Like a lot of people that I talked to couldn't connect to working with Google or working at Facebook or, like technology-based companies. So sometimes it takes multiple voices talking about the same thing for everyone to hear it, because not everyone's going to resonate with one or two people. Sometimes we have to hear things from different sources to really be able to take in the information.
Yeah.
All right, Carol. So the next thing I wanted to ask you about is your leadership style. You've worked in various industries. You've also had the opportunity to work in various companies with all sorts of people. And what I really want everyone to appreciate is our leader, there's no one way to lead. Like there are people we admire, and sometimes we assume I have to lead like that in order to be a good leader. But as you know, leadership is comprised of our experiences, our training, our strengths, our personality, and that all cumulatively creates our leadership style. So Carol, how would you describe your leadership style?
So my leadership style is, at the core of it, is really about getting people engaged and excited about what I'm excited about. So it's really speaking enthusiastically about where it is that we're all headed. What I'm working on is being better at really pulling from people in a collaborative way. And what I mean by that is realizing that that I can get help, that I don't necessarily have the best idea. that it's a good idea, but it could be even better if I really engage others in the conversation. And although I've always seen myself as being collaborative, I have lately recognized that I do have a control issue. I am a bit of a perfectionist, and I'm recognizing that I have to let go, and I also have to. I need to take a step back and put my ideas out there, but to invite, to really solicit people to build on that, versus just like trying to push this great idea.
Awesome. And Carol, what is one thing you're working on within your business that you're really excited about and want to share with us?
Yes. So my business, Talent Strategy Partners, is a consulting firm, and we work with managers, executives, and organizations to help them with develop leaders, identify and develop their emerging leaders, if you will. And so our client has always been, mid to large size organizations. What we're working on right now, and this has to do with the women's leadership development, we have an assessment that's based on the Women's Leadership Blueprint. So it's a multi-rater assessment that one can go through and assess yourself against the behaviors that in my research I found are associated with women who successfully lead. And the work that we're collaborating on is we're working with executive coaches to certify them in being able to have their clients go through this assessment, and help them debrief their clients and understand the model. So it's been different in that it's really a whole different relationship between my organization and who the client is. And then also in the same vein, we are collaborating with another small leadership development firm to look at building out a whole offering around the Women's Leadership Blueprint. And so when I was talking about needing to let go of control, this is like the ultimate test to be able, this is my baby. I need to take a step back, and I need to be open and ask and bring in the opinions of our collaborators.
And Carol, on the flip side of things, what would you say is the biggest leadership or business challenge you're faced with right now?
Oh, well, so as you can imagine, I still have that profile of being a researcher, of being somewhat introverted, and I'm very focused on the content of my work. What I'm not so good at is marketing and getting the word out there, and really selling the business, selling this work. So that's really our challenge, is getting more visibility with potential clients. And we've always relied on, just making the right connections with people. But I recognize that as being limited, and just trying to figure out how to have a bigger footprint, if you will, in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. And, putting yourself on a podcast, that's not a bad step as well, to being more visible. Mm-hmm. All right, Carol, now I'm going to do a quick leadership roundup. So for the next couple of questions, just one sentence answers. What is one practice you have that helps to make you a better leader?
My enthusiasm and my passion for what it is that I'm doing, and when I'm working with others, what we're doing together.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Don't listen to those internal voices. Don't doubt yourself. There is nothing wrong with you wanting to do something that your immediate sphere of family and friends think is beyond your reach.
Now share with us a success quote or a mantra, and then tell us why it has meaning for you.
Okay. So the quote that I think of, and I'm just trying to think about how it connects, is from a physicist, Richard Feynman. And it's actually a quote from his wife. And it's, "What do you care what other people think?" And the reason I think about that quote is that, and I guess it goes back to those internal voices and the people that, although they loved me and supported me, they really thought I was getting out of my depth or realm, if you will. And I really cared about what they thought of me. And the reason I know about the quote is my husband says it to me all the time and reminds me. I mean, we have Richard Feynman's book, which is titled, "What Do You Care What Other People Think?" So it's really having the courage to take risks and to do things that you really believe in, even if other people are, and maybe to be kind, maybe they were just scared for me, like they didn't want me to be disappointed or whatever. But just turn the voices that hold you back, turn those off, and just say, what do you care what other people think? Just do it. You can do it.
And lastly, Carol, what is the best way for this community to connect with you?
So the best way is probably through my email address. It's C as in Carol, V as in Victor, Mitchell, and that's MITCHELL at talentstrategypartners.com.
Okay, so that's CV Mitchell at talentstrategypartners.com.
And I should say that just in case that doesn't work, the at can also be T as in talent, S as in strategy, P as in partners, HR.com.
Okay, so that's CV Mitchell at TSPHR.com.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. And so for those of you who are on the go, you can find all the links and resources shared in this episode at womentakingthelead.com. And Carol, thank you so much for taking the time to inspire and enlighten us. We are all better for having met you.
Oh, thanks, Jody. It was a pleasure.
Before we say goodbye, I want to give a huge shout out to Millie Welsh at ZebraLab Web Solutions. She does the hosting for the Women Taking the Lead website, as well as the SEO and payment solutions. So if you need help with any of these things, contact Millie at zebralabwebsolutions.com. Thank you all for joining me on Women Taking the Lead. And to strengthen you on your own leadership journey, I'd like to send you off with a quote from Marianne Williamson, so here goes. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Again, thank you for joining me, and here's to your success.